The 11th of August, 1990. A man they called El Leon is dead in a Laurel's apartment, and by that evening, every serious person in Medellin understands that the most important chair in Colombia has just gone empty. Pablo Escobar does not attend the funeral. He has an assistant hold a radio up to the officiating priest so he can listen to the mass from somewhere nobody can find him, and 3 days later, he sends for you. You have never spoken to him alone. In 6 years, you have been in the same building as Pablo Escobar perhaps 4 times, and on none of those occasions did he know your name. You are 31 years old. You have been moving product for 6 years, and you have never once been in a room where a decision was made. Gustavo Gaviria was Escobar's cousin, his partner since the 70s, the man who ran the finances and the routes, and who came up with the idea of hiding cocaine inside every legitimate Colombian export there was. He was worth as much as Pablo. Level 1. The summons. You are driven to a farmhouse outside the city. You are shown into a room where Escobar is eating, and he asks you 3 questions about a shipment you handled in 1988, and you answer all 3 from memory without notes. That is the interview. He tells you the position is open. He does not offer condolences or ceremony, and he does not explain what the position actually involves. And you say yes, because there has never been a version of this conversation in which anybody says no. On the drive back, you understand 2 things simultaneously: that you have just been given more money than your family has earned across 3 generations, and that the man whose chair you are taking lasted 20 years and did not make it to 44. Level 2. Learning what the job was. For the first 6 weeks, you think you have inherited an accounting problem. You have inherited an entire hidden economy. Coffee shipments, flour exports, cattle, construction companies that build things nobody lives in, bank offices in small towns who process deposits without lifting their heads. You spend those weeks with Gustavo's ledgers, and what you find in them is not a criminal enterprise. It is an export business that happens to be illegal, built by a patient man who understood that the money was never the hard part, and moving it was. His handwriting is in every margin. Small corrections, dates, a note about a shipping agent's brother. You spend a fortnight essentially being taught by a dead man, and you come out of it with a very clear sense of exactly how far short of him you currently are. Then comes the first real test, which arrives about 2 months in. Escobar wants to answer a government raid with something enormous and public. You have the numbers in front of you showing exactly what the last enormous public thing cost the organization in routes, in bribed officials who stopped answering, in 3 weeks of shipments that could not move. You take the numbers into the room. You put them on the table. And you tell Pablo Escobar, out loud, that the plan is bad for business. The room goes very quiet. And then he looks at the numbers and he changes his mind. And afterward, one of the older men tells you that you just did the actual job for the first time. He also tells you not to expect it to work twice in a row, which turns out to be the single most accurate thing anybody says to you in 3 years. Level 3. Plata o plomo. Silver or lead. It sounds like a threat, and it functions like a spreadsheet. Every judge, every customs official, every policeman who could end the organization with a signature has a column, and your job is to know which column each man is in before anyone has to find out the hard way. You get very good at it. You learn which official takes an envelope gladly, which one takes it while pretending he is doing you a favor, and which one has to be shown quietly that there is another option and he would prefer the envelope. You make one significant mistake in this period. You approve a payment to a man in the port authority who has already, unknown to you, agreed to cooperate with the Americans. The money is traced. It cost the organization a route through Turbo that had been running for 4 years, and it cost you a week of not sleeping, waiting to find out whether the mistake is going to be treated as a mistake. It is. Escobar tells you, every man who handles money loses some of it, and the ones who never lose any are the ones stealing it. You are not certain he means it kindly, and you never entirely stop checking. It is the first time you properly understand that your safety is a business calculation being performed by somebody else continuously, and that you will never be shown the working. Level 4. La Catedral. In 1991, Escobar negotiates a surrender so favorable it barely qualifies as one. He builds his own prison on a hillside above Envigado, chooses the guards himself, and moves in. There is a football pitch. There is a bar. There is a view over the entire valley that exists specifically because he wanted it, positioned so that he can see anyone coming up the hill long before they arrive, which is not an accident and was never presented as one. You become the bridge. Every day you carry instructions down the hill and money back up it, and the organization runs from inside that compound more smoothly than most legitimate companies run from an actual head office. It is, for about a year, the strangest period of your life, and also the safest, and you catch yourself thinking it could continue indefinitely. It cannot. In July 1992, the government finally moves to transfer him to a real prison, and Escobar simply walks out of his own jail the night before they arrive. From that day forward, there are no more good years. You meet him on a road below the compound that night, and he is completely calm. And it is the calmness that frightens you, because it is the calmness of a man who has not yet worked out that this time is different. Level 5. The Fall. Everything changes at once. You stop sleeping in the same building twice. You memorize the exits of a room before you finish sitting down. Every phone call becomes a risk that has to be justified before it is made, and you become the man who says no to a phone call, which is a strange thing to be paid for. You develop rules, and you enforce them on everyone, including yourself. Nothing over 90 seconds. Never the same tower twice in a night. Never a call to family from any building anybody sleeps in. Then Los Pepes arrive, and they are worse than the police, because they are people who used to work for you. Funded partly by Cali, staffed partly by former friends who have decided the ship is going down and they would prefer not to be aboard. They do not hunt Escobar. They hunt everyone around him. Lawyers, accountants, relatives. Over the course of that year, you lose people you have worked alongside for a decade, and you hear about most of it secondhand in the back of a car from a man reading names off a list. Some of the names on that list ate at your table. One of them recommended you for this job. You start moving your own money into places nobody in the organization knows about, not out of disloyalty, out of arithmetic. Every organization like this one ends, and they end fast. And the men who survive the ending are without exception the men who prepared for it before it looked likely. Level 6. The last months. By late 1993, there is almost nothing left of what you inherited. The ledgers describe an economy that no longer exists. The men who used to answer phones do not answer them. Escobar changes safe houses so often that even you do not always know where he is on a given night. And the only thing he will not give up, the one thing you cannot talk him out of, is calling his family. You tell him, repeatedly. You explain, with the same numbers on the table method that worked in 1990, exactly how long a call has to run before it can be traced. He listens the way a man listens to weather. He agrees with you, sincerely, every time, and then his son answers the phone, and every agreement stops existing. And after the fourth or fifth time, you stop bringing it up, which is a decision you revisit for the rest of your life. On the 1st of December, he turns 44. He spends most of that day on the phone with his son, singing, laughing, entirely unguarded, and you are not with him because you are working a separate problem across the city, and that ordinary scheduling decision is the only reason you are not on a roof in Los Olivos the following afternoon. They find him on the 2nd. A traced call, a house in a quiet middle-class neighborhood, and it is finished within minutes of them arriving. Terracotta rooftops in an ordinary neighborhood where ordinary families were eating lunch. That detail stays with you more than the rest of it. You hear it on a radio in a room that becomes far too large the moment the announcer says the name. There is nothing left to manage. No bribe to place, no route to protect, no man to talk out of a bad idea. The entire architecture of your life for 3 years existed in relation to one person, and that person no longer exists, and neither, functionally, do you. You do not attend any version of a funeral. Neither did Pablo, for Gustavo 3 years earlier, and the symmetry of that is not lost on you, even standing in the middle of it. What is left of the organization eats itself within weeks. You disappear the way careful men learn to disappear. A different name, a quiet town, considerably more money than you can ever explain, and considerably less peace than any of it was supposed to buy. People who eventually learn some fragment of who you used to be always ask the same question. What was he actually like? And you have never once found an answer that does not sound like a warning wearing a story's clothes. Mostly, you think about the job itself. Not the money, not the routes, not the rooms. The job. Because the actual job, the one Gustavo Gaviria did for 20 years, and you did for 3, was telling one specific man that he was wrong. Gustavo was better at it than you were. He had 2 decades and a family name, and he still only won about half the time. And every single thing that happened after August 1990, the surrender, the escape, the war, the roof in Los Olivos, all of it happened because the one man who could reliably say no was already dead, and the man they found to replace him was you.